Welcome to JHC. My name is CJ, and I'm now going to be giving you all today's topic. We're going to be talking about 3 reasons why your coworkers are not your friends. Now, typically on this channel, we're going to be going more so into tips on how to either not waste your time while trying to find your career, or how to prevent bad things from happening and derailing you getting the career opportunities that you want. There's also going to be a very upfront and direct conversation about the bad things that are going on in the job market, because ultimately we need to look at some of the systemic problems that are taking place. However, let's really take a good look at some advice that's related to people who are actually already at their job or are about to enter the job world and want to be conscientious of what to do, how to move, and how to operate before they get there. Now, when it comes to your coworkers, one thing that you need to understand is that your coworkers are not your friends, okay? Your coworkers are situational acquaintances, and that's it. The first reason why you should not trust them is because these are individuals who you meet by proximity, not by intentionality. Now, what does that mean? This means that these are individuals who are already placed there. You did not get to choose the people that you work with. You do not get to choose them as if they're people who you're going to hang out with. They're already there. They've been selected by managers, CEOs, and other individuals who make hiring decisions. When it comes to this proximity issue, it tends to put you in a situation where you're forced to be around that person almost to a greater extent than you would someone in your family, like a wife or a husband or, a kid or something like that, because you're spending, usually if it's a full-time job, 8 hours on the job at least 5 days a week. In some cases, it's actually longer than that. So I'm saying that to say you're spending a lot of time with these individuals, so it gives you the facade that you're supposed to become close to them because of how much time you spend. And naturally, because you see each other so much, you would think that there's some maybe commonalities and things like that are found. And as a result, you do build some type of rapport with these individuals and you have a good working relationship. But that's different than having a friendship, because having a friendship means that these are individuals who you trust, individuals who you give information to that usually is confidential, that is sensitive, and things that you would assume they're not going to take and going to do something messed up with them. But when it comes to your coworkers, they're not your friends. These aren't individuals who you can trust on a friendship type level. You may be able to trust them in order for them to get the job done as far as the work that you all do together, as far as what you do at the same place that you work at. But as far as you being a friend and you hanging out with them, that's not an individual who you should trust, because it's not someone you chose. It's someone who you were forced to be in the same place as if you choose to work at that job. Also, a social media follower of mine said something that I found to be very interesting, insightful when it comes to coworkers and proximity. And what he said was, he doesn't like the idea of a coworker trying to become your friend or trying to act like they are your friend and not just, again, a situational acquaintance, because it's just simply lazy. If you want to make good friends and friends who are intentional, then you should go and you should seek those friends out. You shouldn't just go to your workplace and then act like you're cool with the people who are around you and you're like, okay, those are just going to be my friends. Actually, go out and seek individuals who you can have a like-minded connection with. And in some cases, this may require, again, shared interest and shared goals. Individuals who are into things that are similar to what you are into. It's all about finding your tribe and things like that. And a lot of times at work, that's not the case, because it's a dog eat dog type of situation. Everybody is there really for themselves. But again, it presents itself as somewhat of a team aesthetic, because oftentimes you all are working at the same company in order for the company to continue to be successful and thrive. So it seems like you guys are working together, but at the same time, you're also working against each other. Friends don't work against each other. unless, again, they're having some type of fun, competitive thing going on. But they're not going to literally do things that could actively harm that person in the way that they're able to, again, feed themselves or their family. The second reason why you need to understand that your coworkers are not your friends is because all of you all are there to make money. And as a result of trying to make money, they may be prone to backstab. Now, why is this important? Because individuals are going to try to step over each other in order to basically get their bag. They're going to do things that may require them to take cheap shots at people or to put people down or throw people under the bus or whatever the case is in order for them to get ahead of others. So they're going to step over you in order to get to where you need to get to. So you shouldn't put your trust in them, because their ultimate goal is for them to make money, potentially make more money at some point, get raises, and to feed their family. So they're not really trying to be there and be buddied up with you. And as a result of having that survival mentality, they're willing to potentially throw you under the bus if it means getting ahead for themselves. So these are individuals who you should not really trust, just on the premise that they could potentially backstab you if it comes to promotions or it comes to, trying to find slick ass ways to basically get over on you. Third reason why coworkers are not your friends is because when it comes to shit hitting the fan, a lot of times they're not really trying to help you. They're trying to stay quiet, or in some cases, they may even side with the employer and do exactly what the employer asked them to do, even if they know that what they're telling them to do is a complete lie, because often what that means is them saving their job. So it's very similar to the second reason that I just gave you. Your coworkers are going to be individuals who, again, you spend so much time with, and they learn about you, you learn about them, and then you see their passion. And even in some instances, they may try to present themselves as somebody who has a problem with the way things are working at the job. But then when shit hits the fan for you, especially if you're on the outside, you lose your job or whatever the case is, and you need some legal help, a lot of times they're not going to be there for you, and especially if they're at that job. If you want to maybe leverage them if they are outside of that job and they have an issue now, or they have a grievance or whatever the case is, then you might be able to make that work. But as far as thinking that this individual is going to be there while they are working there, that's a no-go. That individual you might as well consider your enemy. And the reason why I say you might as well consider them your enemy is because they are more than likely to turn against you when it comes to you trying to make a case for yourself and to get justice for what may have happened to you. And again, your reason for trying to do something legal might actually be legitimate, but this coworker is willing to run interference if it means them keeping their job, because from their perspective, if they go and they say something that's true to what happens with you and supports what you're saying, and then you're against them, that could mean something bad could happen to them while they are at the job there too. So now they could be targeted because they decided to use integrity to because they decided to go off of integrity and then speak up for you. So this is just not something you should expect. These are things, everything that I'm naming are things that a friend typically would do. A friend typically would support you if you were in a legal jam. A friend would not backstab you. A friend would not be somebody who you just meet in proximity, but somebody who you choose because they're an individual who aligns with the things that you like, or there's some commonalities or shared interests that makes it seem like this is a good bond. But coworkers, when the chips fall, you can see when things really get real, a lot of them are not going to keep that same persona that they had, even when you built a rapport with them. And as far as backstabbing goes, I'll say this: I've actually witnessed it happen between two different coworkers. So I was working at this nonprofit job, and at this job, one of the individuals who was an employee was someone who used to be on the board for the nonprofit. and she told a coworker about something that happened on the board, but she told her about it in confidence. And this was something that I guess was related to an issue that that coworker had with the board at that time that she was no longer on, because again, she was an employee. And when she left that job, she left out pissed off. Like something happened between her and management and she wasn't feeling it. And she said, I got to get up out of here. And so when she got up out of there, I guess as a thing to try to get back at management, she decided to just start spilling the beans on all the shit that was told to her by that coworker. So she went and she basically spilled everything that she said about the board to the board on her way out the door. And it ended up kind of sullying the relationship between the former board member who was an employee and the current board at that time. So I've seen it happen where, you know, these people who you think are your friends will go back and then they'll say something and then it'll mess up your relationships with other people or potentially your actual job. And I even told this coworker of mine after, you know, she told me about how she told her all this information in confidence and whatnot. And I just straight up told her, listen, I wouldn't have said all that. Like, those are some things that you should have just kept to yourself. But hey, you know, I didn't say this part to her, but in my head, I was like, a hard head makes for a soft ass. Also, another thing too that you all need to keep in mind when you're thinking about these coworkers and trying to become friends with them, or should you become friends with them or whatever. These are individuals who, after you leave the job, most times, and I mean like 9 times out of 10, these are individuals that you are probably never going to see again and might not even speak to again. You know, I'll say this. Out of all the jobs I've had, and I've had quite a bit, I usually have this trend where there'll be one person at least who I became really well acquainted with and we just had a real good rapport. And it's somebody who I at least might text and see what's up with them, you know, when we were done with the job, because we were just so cool. And this was before I understood this rule of you're not making friends with your coworkers. But then at a certain point, even that one, I guess, friendship, coworkership, whatever the hell you want to call it, even that dropped off at a certain point. So I'm saying this to say these are very superficial and temporary relationships that you really shouldn't be investing in and taking very seriously. And investing in them means you're not oversharing things. You're not trusting them with things that are very private and personal to you. Because again, even in my experience and all the jobs I've had, I literally found at least one friend in each of them, and I literally speak to none of them to this day. You know, and even when you do leave the job, they'll even do this little fake thing where, and this is something I've seen a lot, some of them will say, you know, this is not the end, you know, we can still meet for lunch, or we can meet for brunch, or we'll see each other around the city or whatever. They like to do that where they try to make it seem like this is just not the end, it's a new beginning. You know how they like to do that dramatic shit in some of these movies where, you know, people are basically saying goodbye and they're trying to act like they're not going to see each other, and there's a different way that they're going to show up and be able to still connect with each other. You ain't going to see them again. Because I had coworkers do that before where they try to make it seem like, oh, we're going to meet up. Oh, you can come over my house. Oh, you can do this. Oh, you can do that. I wasn't trying to do none of that. I'm working with you because I have to. And to be quite honest with you, most of the people who would do this type of thing, I could barely tolerate them. I'll make a quick note about HR. HR is not your friend because they represent the company. They're not there to help you. They're only there to help and serve the interest of whoever it is that you're working for. And in a lot of cases, I'll even say this too. Even in some situations where you go to them about an issue that's going on, if it's an issue between you and a manager, it could possibly make your situation worse and possibly make it so that they're targeting you more and they even side with the person who is in a higher up position than where you are at. So I'm saying this to say that this is not an individual who you can go and vent to. To be honest, I'm gonna be real. First of all, they don't really want to hear it. So there's already the empathy factor that's already gonna be out the window. Second, they're not going to do anything that's going to be advantageous to you. It typically is not going to end the behavior. If anything, if you believe that you are in a discriminatory situation, the best thing to do is to start lawyering up, because they are not going to save your situation. And most likely, they're not going to get that person up out of there. HR is somebody who you should also look at as an enemy. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to be awkward. You don't have to be weird. But just understand that when it comes to needing help and getting into that type of jam, they are not your friend. If you're looking for information related to what to avoid doing when searching for jobs, networking, and also maneuvering properly while on the job, then continue to tune into JHC. I'm CJ, and I'll talk to you later.